Today on First Cup, I'm going to show you a new impromptu self-defense weapon I found. Tell you about my day yesterday, and talk a little bit about today. So stick around. We're going live, rolling, or I guess in 15. All right, coffee's here. I got my props. All right, let's do it. 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Today is Tuesday. It is January 11th, 2022. My name is Jeremy, and this is my first cup of coffee. It's cold. It's really cold. It's somewhere between 5 and 10 below, depending on who you ask and my thermometer. It's going to be a high of like 2 today. So there's that. I can feel it. I can feel it when it gets this cold overnight, because normally it's warm enough, the house holds the heat well enough that when I go to bed, the furnace doesn't kick on overnight. Furnace kicked on, I don't even know when, and has been cranking. But it's not that bad in here, so that's okay. I'm wearing a sweater. Oh, look at all these names. Good morning, Tommy and Jenny and Dennis and Daniel. Tommy says, yeah, it's wicked cold. It is. And Dennis says, Tommy, the man of the hour. Yeah. You guys check out Tommy's episode yesterday? Got some good feedback on it. He's a good guy. Looking at the forecast, we've got one day where it's going to break above freezing in the next 10. We usually have one run of this per winter. I was kind of hoping we wouldn't have one this year, but we're having it. And in fact, Saturday, the projected high is -1. The high is -1. That's rare. For us to have a high below 0 is very rare here. That might happen once a winter. It's not a normal thing. And when it calls for -1, it usually means -5 where I live. Just the way things settle in here. But that's okay. That's why I've got wood stoves and lots of clothing. Dennis says, schools are actually delayed 2 hours here today due to the cold. I never knew there was such a thing. You know, there were days where I remember waiting for the bus in like -10. There was one day, and I vaguely remember this. I remember it was really cold. I can't say quite what it was. Like, I can't know. It's not in my memory. But my gut tells me it was 20 below. Why? Because I walked back down the road to the house to beg my mother to not make me stand out in the cold waiting for the bus. So it must have been a lot colder than normal. And we have plenty of days in New England where it's in single digits. So it had to have been noticeably colder than that. And it's not like she was sending me out not bundled up. Kelly says their school's actually closed today because of the cold. Wow. Okay. End of the story. The bus did finally come. It was slow because it was so cold. The buses didn't start well. You know what's not a warm place? A school bus. I feel like my sweater shrunk, even though I washed it in cold. I'm not really thrilled about that. I don't know. I'll have to double check the care instructions. Yeah, so yesterday, did a bunch of work. It was pretty good work. Did some stuff around here, went to the range. I'm going to talk about the range. One of the things that I've found interesting about the shooting that I'm doing is how closely the concepts, not the actions, of course, but the concepts parallel martial arts training. And one of the things we started doing yesterday was, instead of me just kind of hanging out with a firearm on target, I had to follow some instructions. Firearm was off target, and then I was told to do something, and then I had to do it. Not with a timer running or anything, but with an eye towards, doing it fast-ish. Completely changed everything. Targets were closer than they had been a week ago, and I was still having trouble. And by the end, I got better. Now, what it reminded me of was the stress drills that I've done in the past. This idea that, the moment right, like the moment people get stressed out, a little bit anxious, their techniques fall apart. And I've done these drills with schools that don't do them, and it's interesting to watch people very high rank just collapse under the smallest amount of pressure, which makes me sad because what's going to happen when they get out there and they have to use it? Good morning, Eric. So I got better because it really didn't stress me out, because I've got all this other training, and the instructor said I did a pretty good job, so I'll take it. So we continue. So next month I'll go back, and in between I'll go and practice on my own, because that's what I do. Popped over to the gym real quick. I've shifted my focus to kind of not away from, but I'm prioritizing cardio because I got Superfoot testing at the end of the month and don't have a ton of cardio going on right now, but I got time. I've got a few weeks, so that'll be fine. You don't need a ton of time to get ready cardio-wise. It's the level I need to be at. And if you have checked out the fuel program that we put out, same concepts. That's what I'm doing. Not quite the same implementation, but same ideas. Today, got a couple interviews. We're supposed to have a third interview, but we had to reschedule someone. Sadly, this is the second reschedule on this person, but at least they're letting us know ahead of time, so I'll take it. And they had a good reason, so that's fine. What else happened today? Work. Just work in between and trying to stay warm and trying not to do it with drinking too much coffee, because can't really do interviews while I'm all wired up. So I mentioned that there was a new self-defense tool. I had been looking at something like this, but I didn't like them. And they were too big. They weren't going to work. I gave one to someone as a gift, and it was fun, but it wasn't something I was going to carry. And then I saw these on Amazon. Amazon was like, "Hey, you should buy these," and I was like, "These are $1 a piece." This is marketed as a fire starting tool. The idea is that you expand this little baton-looking thing, and you blow into the spark, and you can get a fire going. And there are times when my fire is being stubborn, and I want one of these. But it's also a very small, very cheap. These are 6 for like $6.50 or something. Collapsible baton. Is this something that I'm going to use as a bludgeoning weapon and come out victorious? Nope, it's going to collapse. But if you do any Filipino martial arts, you know that sometimes the value of that weapon isn't just to cut or to strike, but rather to distract. And let's face it, nobody wants to catch this tip in the eye. That's not going to feel very good. So I have started carrying one of these. And you might want to consider doing so too. Because whether you need to make a fire or you need to fend off somebody being a putz, you got an answer. I like the idea of improvised weapons, and I like the idea of things that do double duty. Versatility is a nice thing to have. If anybody out there is from the South and would like to book me for a seminar so I can be less cold, I'm game for that. Please. Can I please come visit somewhere warm? Oh, in the back, the light on the backyard's on. I have a hard time believing anything's out there right now. It's too cold. The deer huddled down. They're not going anywhere. Daniel says, I suspect very few muggers will want to find out if it collapses or bends if you hit them. Yes. He falls up. That comment made no sense, but you get the idea. Yes, I do. Brian says, good morning, everyone. A balmy -4 on my car's info. Stay warm, folks. Yeah, there is little chance that I'm ever going to use something like this, but I have it. And what I like about it is it's not a knife. I already carry a knife. Knives are only good for stabbing and cutting. They're not really good as impact tools. They're not good as range modifiers, which that's what I would call this. Create some space. And even if it does bend, still hit somebody with it. I could have shown you. You don't have to expand it all the way if you don't want to. I mean, it's still cheap metal, but you can half expand it, have more substance. I don't know. Whatever. It's $1. It's in my pocket now. Not right now. You know what I mean. I feel like my brain's not hitting. Let's switch gears. All right, what do we got? Weren't there a comment? Oh, maybe I need to refresh this page. I thought I did that. Need background music. Need this it's like a little bit in the background. Although kind of the furnace does that. All right. We got some stuff here. What do we got? Frank says, use what's already here. Okay, we will do that. All right, Kellie's got something that came in at the very end of yesterday's show. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Let's go with what Josh has here. Josh dropped us some quotes. A few quotes attributed to Bessie Coleman, pioneering early 20th century aviator and the first Black Native American woman to obtain a pilot's license, though she had to go to France to do so since no U.S. school would accept her. I refused to take no for an answer. Persistence. I mean, that's nobody got anywhere by just listening to what everybody else said. If they say no, you got to find a way around it. Experience is simply the name we give our mistakes. One of the things I talk about in the seminar that I'm teaching is failure, making mistakes, and the critically important role that it plays in not just martial arts development, but in life. Everything we do roots back to not getting things right. We suck at something, but we have the willingness to continue. And then we get a little better. And we do it again, and we do it again. And ideally, we get a little better each time. A man who carries a cat by the tail learns something he can learn in no other way. Oh. The more dramatic the failure, usually the more memorable the lesson. We all screw stuff up. The bigger the errors, the bigger the lessons. If you're sparring with someone and they tap you on top of the head, that may or may not remind you to block. If you're sparring with someone and they punch you in the face and it hurts, you are probably going to make an adjustment. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. That is a painful reality. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Hopefully, as we look backwards and understand, we can apply those lessons forwards. I've shared this before. Let me share it again. If in studies broken down by age on the happiest people, it's folks in their 60s. Why? My theory is they've lived long enough to know what they want to do, what they like to do, what they don't want to do, coupled with having the resources, the money to do the things they want to do, but not being so old that their body has really started to fall apart, so they can't do those things. It's kind of the intersection. I like that one. Coming back to this baton thing, Daniel says, I think pulling a knife would escalate things, whereas a stick to ward them off with won't. Maybe. Depends on the situation, I think. And most of the time, I think bringing any kind of weapon into the mix is going to have one of two sorts of reactions. It's either going to be such an advantage that the other person or the people have a different perspective and no longer consider you to be the easy target they had hoped you would be, or it is not that traumatic and you potentially take a situation that may not have gone the distance in terms of physical violence, but now it will. So you got to be careful with that stuff. Now, of course, the more time I spend training and talking to people about violence, the more likely I am to assume violence is coming sooner in the path. I was brought up, you wait until someone throws a technique at you. I am not that person anymore. I think that is still the advice I would offer children if I am training them because of the scenarios that they are in. But there are too many circumstances where waiting really leaves you at a disadvantage. I think this is some of what Cobra Kai season 4 is trying to talk about, but maybe not the best way. The idea that there are times when you have to strike first. Kelly says, I also carry a keychain weapon from Amazon. Very small, looks decorative. Ooh, interesting. Good morning, Stacy. She says, took too long to pry myself from bed and heating cats. Yeah. Daniel says, or someone pulls a Crocodile Dundee. That's not a knife. This is a knife. Yeah. Paul Hogan, those movies. Anybody else sad about Bob Saget? That one's kind of bumming me out. It was early. It wasn't old enough. You know, Sidney Poitier passing away. That guy was old. I get it. Betty White, she was really old. I get it. Sad. Bob Saget. I was flipping through social media this morning, standing over the heater, which is what I do in the morning, and bumped into a string of tweets from Josh Radnor. If you saw How I Met Your Mother, that was Ted, the main character. And if you've watched that show, you know that a big part of the concept of that show is that it's all told in hindsight. And the man who plays, or rather voices, because you never see him, older Ted telling the story in hindsight to his children is Bob Saget. And he was like 7 tweets, and it was emotional. And it kind of reminded me, you know, Well, we don't have to get into it, but that is a voice that I know from a number of stages of my life, and it's sad that we won't have more. So, yeah. Okay. And now we're going to flip over because I think this is an important conversation. And Kellie sent me some context after to help me understand, and I completely get it. You asked me to share this comment for Tuesday as people were talking about rank. I said that as a woman martial artist, I have felt that I needed my rank to be taken seriously. And I think this came out of a mention I made about stripes on belts and how I'm not a big fan of that. Now, let me preface all of this with I'm not a woman. I've never been a woman. I don't expect I will ever be a woman. So understanding what it's like to be a woman in any context is something I can only intellectually try to understand. I'm never going to be able to fully empathize with it. I do know what it's like to be not taken seriously for other reasons, so I can try to extend that. But we do have a tendency when it comes to physical disciplines to look down on, broadly as a society, women more so than men. We do not celebrate the achievements of women in physical pursuits in the same way that we do male pursuits. I have speculation as to why, but if you want the best example, Simone Biles in the Olympics and her pulling out because she was having a nervous breakdown. And that's my word. That's not necessarily what she described it as. And the sheer number of people attacking her seem to be primarily men. When I scroll through social media and see a woman doing something very impressive, most of what I'm seeing is martial arts because that's what I look at. The majority of the negative comments are coming from men. So the question here is specifically women, but anyone, quote unquote, wearing their rank on their sleeve, wearing it outwardly, and why that may be appropriate. Now, I think you all know me well enough to know that I'm not saying what I do or why I do should be anybody else's actions or reasons. I'm happy to talk about them. In fact, lately I've been posting things on Facebook where I'm intentionally posting things that I either know are disruptive or controversial, or even things. I posted something yesterday that I wasn't even sure I agreed with the statement. You know, it's kind of like like starting a debate, like not an argument, but a debate. And because I felt like there was something there for me to learn. Okay, so I put that out there. When I think about rank, and when I think about Kellie specifically, because I know Kellie and I have some mutual connections that are not always kind to people. They can be, no, I'll just leave that at that. And I will confess that when a greater percentage of the time that I spent as a martial artist around martial artists was with these people, I definitely felt like less of a martial artist. I felt like what I had done, what I was doing did not matter because I was looking around at a group of people who had a very consistent thought process. They seemed to think very similarly about what martial arts was, what it represented, what the goals were, etc. Those things did not line up for me. Those were not my goals. Those were not my experiences. I did not come up in the same way that they did. And I won't say I was quite an outcast, but black sheep, I guess. Jenny says, sounds like a form of bullying, perhaps. You can see it from there. Now, one of the things that can be an effective defense mechanism in those contexts is rank and displaying rank. There are others, but I get it. What I experienced was that it wouldn't have mattered how many stripes I had on my belt. I was dismissed for having a karate background. I was dismissed for doing karate forms at competitions that were theoretically open competitions where even karate schools were invited, and I was clearly scored down by the last time I competed, which was a warm-up for doing a much larger competition, ironically. I ultimately lost in the Grand Championships to a child. And we were being refereed by 5 people, 4 of whom were not, let's see, I'm trying to remember back. 4 of whom were so young, my black belt was older than them. So I'm sharing that because I know that I still get a little worked up, trying to offer some empathy and some context. I get it. I think we could all agree that if we looked at it from the perspective of don't worry about what other people say, which is a wonderful ideal to strive for, but we're all human and it's not going to happen overnight, and it's probably never going to happen completely. But when your contemporaries have conditioned you that this is a thing and this is what you should do and this is how it looks, and it's hard to let go of that. One of the best things I ever did was not engaging with some of these folks anymore. Some of them made it really easy. They stopped talking to me. They unfriended me. There's one I'm really sad about. But that person is deep in the mix with these other folks. Hey, I can't do it myself. Having a friendship, having any kind of relationship takes 2 people. And so I look at stripes and I see that side of it. For me, the other side of it, though, is that there are so many people who put so much stock in it that other things don't matter. Oh, well, this person, that person. And I hope, looks like I'm going to have a conversation with somebody soon, another person, about opening a school. I have a concept for a school where rank is optional, where you can still do the vast majority of the things that we're going to do, and you can still progress. If you don't want to earn rank, you don't have to. Because I think we are at a point where rank is doing more harm than good to the martial arts. And I want to test this theory that we can have a school where it is not the focus. Because if I'm right, it proves it out and other people can try it. Kelly says, that's why I left them too. So happy I found whistlekick. Thank you to my new family. I appreciate you all. It was never one of the things I intended that we would come together in this way. But in hindsight, it makes sense, right? Past is clear. And that has informed some of the things that we are doing as we move forward into the future. If someone questions my rank or says that they are better because of their rank, let's face it, there are people out there, because I know them. I have been training for 38 and a half years. So what? Okay. But there are plenty of schools out there that award rank mostly based on time in. There are plenty of people out there that I've met who've been training half that time, and they, quote unquote, outrank me. Shout out to anybody listening that can't see my hand gesture. That used to bother me. It doesn't bother me anymore. And the outcome of it not bothering me is really not looking at rank the same way. So I could have plenty of stripes. I don't need stripes. I think I'm good at what I do, and I think that speaks for itself. Okay. And here's a great way to end. Jenny says, same, I even have them in my family. It takes a lot of people to fill the world, all shapes and sizes and personalities. Exactly. There is no wrong way. There are just ways that are counter to your values. Hope you have a good day. If you haven't checked out Tommy's episode from yesterday, go ahead, do that. It's a good one. People are digging it. People usually dig our episodes, but I'm getting more feedback on this one, and 100% positive. So check that out. I'm going to go get ready. I've got a meeting in an hour, a long day of a whole bunch of stuff. So take care, everyone. Thank you. And I'll see you back here tomorrow. Peace.